So Louis, can you tell me where are you from?
Brooklyn.
When did you start photography?
I believe I started about 13 or 14.
When you were a young boy, you
Yeah.
went to the Metropolitan and looked at the photos. Could you just tell this story?
I had heard that the Metropolitan has a good collection of original photographs by Stieglitz and Strand, and that if I called up, I can come and see them. I came in, and here I was, 15 years old. I had put on a tie. I was treated with great respect. I got a desk and a chair, and they brought all the photographs to show me. There were sort of frames, and here I was. It was unbelievable that they showed it with great respect and showed me, and it was a wonderful experience. It was helped me grow and evolve as a photographer. Ici, ailleurs. It's not just what you see, it's significant in other ways that give it an added richness and profoundness. It's just not a document. I came originally for 2 weeks. I was going to arrange a show in New York of French photographers. And I suppose I fell in love with the place, and I just stayed for 5 years, you know. It helped me because I was an ex-soldier. I could get a small pension. So I stayed and photographed. My closest friend was Buba, and there was a wonderful spirit of camaraderie after the war, you know. Versailles was my master. I would come to him every week, and we would talk, and it was a wonderful, encouraging experience.
How was Paris after the war?
Well, there was a wonderful spirit there. People, not right away. In '46, they were still getting over the shock, but gradually there was a wonderful spirit of enjoying peace. People were open, they were carefree, and there was almost a joyous atmosphere. After 3 years of including myself, I had been in the army for 3 years, people were really enjoying the peace and the freedom. People dared to do things that they don't normally did, and they were very open to each other. It was a wonderful spirit. New York did not experience all the suffering you had here in Europe, you see. I came there originally doing some writing, and then I came there, naturally I brought along my camera, and I was very moved by these fishermen that would go out. And then I got to talk to them, and I went out with them for a few days. And that was the main thing I did on the beach, was a coverage of Pepe and Tony. They opened themselves to me, and it just worked out. When something works out, it's always sort of a miracle, and yet it was very simple at the same time. When I came back to New York, I thought this might make a good book, and I got it together, and I made a maquette. And then I thought about it, and I said, look, I didn't even take it around. I couldn't see the climate there. I was interested in two Spanish fishermen, so I just put it in a box and put it away.
What sort of camera did you use?
A rolling cord camera. I used this camera because it was very discreet. I didn't stare at them. I looked down. I fiddled with it, you know. So photography is very curious. If people know you're taking their picture, they no longer feel relaxed or themselves. I could take it most of the time without them being aware that I was taking it. I suppose it's probably the only place where you can photograph people when they're sitting there and they don't realize that you're photographing them if you're discreet enough. I was very much interested in them as people on the streets. I'm always walking around, but New York has no cafes. The only place where I could photograph them was in the subway. They were sitting there. And I could only do it when the train stopped, you see. But I spent quite a long time doing it.
What are you looking in this human body? What are you interested in?
It's hard to answer, but to express what I feel is very important about them. It can be relevant, enrich other people. Finding it all out about life, it's an endless process. It goes on to infinity, being aware of what other human beings are. And it's also a great enrichment to be aware of. Workers make the world go around. We could not eat, we could not dress, we could not live if someone didn't work. And I feel most artists don't give them enough attention. They go into factories, there's a whole book on a factory. Yeah. Myself, I was passionately interested in them. I still am. It was mostly, it was a little before that, mostly against the Vietnamese War, which I believe also, which I was against. They were against it, and I felt passionately also about it, so that's why I photographed them.
So you were part of the protesters?
Yes. Very naturally, she accepted me, and she wasn't aware of the camera. And I suppose it's a question of friendship. You trust someone. I think a mutual trust. I think it was what happened after the war. It was a protest in a way of not going a typical job, going into it. They didn't want to follow the same routine as before the war. They wanted more freedom, a more exciting life. And this was their way of protesting.
So Nancy was a beatnik?
Yes, well, a human being first. I don't think she always stayed a beatnik. I heard she got married and she had children. It's hard to say when you say what was interesting. It's not an intellectual thing. You're moved by something and then you want to take pictures. And it was completely different from the city. And I was just interested in how things were around me. I relate. Still life is hard to describe why you do care for it, but it's, I suppose it's particularly everyday things around us interest me very much. If you look carefully, they're a great source of spiritual encouragement. I was living in Athens, and I got to love very much the countryside in the Hudson River Valley. And the small towns interested me very much. The people there, how they lived.
Did you direct them?
No, I never did. The only time if I wanted to take a portrait of someone, I would ask him, and we would spend 20 minutes, half an hour. Quite by accident, I came across the LP. It's a forest, not far from Hull, and everything about me inspired me a lot. It's nature that expresses itself in all its fantasy, and I've gone there now 14 times. There are 46 photographs, which I did. It's interesting. I came back to a camera which is 8 by 10 inches. Which is the same one that I started in Paris in '47. I had always been attracted to nature. I'd made a few attempts. They were partially successful, and only a big negative could capture it. So it's a camera weighs about 30 kilos, and my wife Janet and carried it around. We did it, I don't know, little by little, something that grew and it got more evolved. And later on, I found out that Van Gogh worked there, Cézanne, and so anyway, I've fallen into the history of art in France. But it's the three of them in there. I'd like one day to see all 46, but it needs a very big place. But I started out in nature, and I'm finishing in nature. I hope it's not finished, but anyway, that's my last project, which is almost done.
What interests you in photography?
Well, it's to interpret the world around me, especially the human condition, according to my own personal vision, to obtain something that I feel enriches everybody and that gives us a deeper appreciation of life here.